Bill, what is it about the relationship between science and theology that'll take some reasonably normal people like you and me and have us devote so much of our psychic energy to this issue? What is it about it?
I think we want to understand the world and our place in it. And science raises fascinating questions. I mean, how is it that we can understand the world at all? How is it that our intellect seems adapted to making sense out of the world? Why are there these regularities that allow us to see that the world has a certain character and allows us to exploit that and develop technology? I mean, these are...
Because there's nothing essential about that. It could have been that every third spin of an electron went a different direction.
It could be that, instead of sitting here, suddenly the laws of gravity, things change and we start levitating, and then something else happens and we go sideways. But instead there is a certain stability, and our intellects seem adapted to that, and we try to make sense out of that. And the whole intelligibility of the world, and it raises questions about, well, what's behind that? What allows that to be? Why is there this order that we see? We talk about cosmology. I mean, it comes from the Greek cosmos. It's the same root as cosmetics. I mean, it's an ordered, and it even there's a sense of beauty that comes along with that. And we hanker for an explanation. And I think it leads us very naturally to questions about God and ultimate reality. Not that everybody ends up there, but even those who don't end up there realize that there is a pull. And you have somebody on the extreme like Richard Dawkins who will say, well, there is no God. But I mean, there's still a reaction at some level, to it. It's not that there's a wonder and an awe that comes with this by looking at the natural world and understanding it scientifically, it seems that we can't quite escape.
So if we're looking for some core concept that underlies both science and religion that forces this, it's a wonder of what we see in the natural world, of what we experience in our lives, or just some wonder that we seek explanation for.
Yeah, but I wouldn't say it's just an inarticulate wonder. I think it's this convergence of things. I mean, that our minds, here we're able to appreciate this. That we're in a world which is understandable, where we can do science, where we can look at the stars. I mean, there are a lot of places in the universe we might be where we couldn't, wouldn't see eclipses, wouldn't see the stars, wouldn't be able to form celestial mechanics. I mean, it seems that we have, as it were, been designed to be scientists. And that's remarkable.
If one goes back to pre-scientific times when everything was either magical in an animistic sense, or everybody saw spiritual things manipulating, the world, in one sense, wasn't as wondrous as it is when you appreciate science. So in one sense, if you're a theist, you might even appreciate your theism better in a scientific world than in a magical one.
Yeah. Well, I think you're onto something there. I mean, Isaac Newton is widely regarded as the greatest scientist who ever lived. And I mean, he developed his Principia Mathematica, but then, half of his writings were on theology, and he was trying to make sense of it. And even in his Principia, you have, there'll be paragraphs where he's talking about the design and the wonder of God in creating a world which has this order, this structure, in which science makes sense of things.
Newton is interesting because not only being a great scientist and looking at issues of design, he dealt with some pretty obscure and aspects of theology. He was looking at prophecies and datings and a lot of stuff, in fact, that has come out even recently. Yeah. I mean, he was really very much focused on areas of theology which would be today called rather fringe.
Yeah, I mean, half of his writings were theology and alchemy.
Yeah.
I mean, it's remarkable.
And what that shows is that very brilliant minds are just obsessed, can be obsessed, and drawn to wanting to understand these ultimate kinds of questions.
Yeah. Well, I think there's a drive for unification. We want to put it all together in one neat package, and I don't think it's ever all that neat, but we still want to have the grand vision. And I think in some senses we're trying to get this synoptic vision that God has of the whole created order. We don't get there, but at least we strive. And
in the striving is its own its own beauty, its own compulsion. My wife has said that when we first met, she knew I had these interests 40 some odd years ago, and she did not. She's a pianist and artist. And she said then, and she'll say today, that she's had none of this interest. I've had it my whole life, and now, 40 years later, we both still know about the same thing. But I can't not do otherwise.
Well, I feel the same way. I mean, there's nothing I'd rather be doing but investigating these questions.
And does that say anything of itself beyond maybe our own personal brain wirings that we're sort of this way? I mean, can we infer from that more than the obvious in terms of our own being built to have this desire?
Yeah, well, I mean, Aristotle, right at the start of his metaphysics, says we desire to know. I mean, that's just this fundamental need in humans. And the thing is, we never know it all. We keep pushing the boundaries of knowledge. And if the more we can, this idea of being able to glimpse more, and there's something that just it quickens our spirits to gain insights into the world, into God, into the nature of reality. So
I find it a tragedy when large numbers of the population look at science and religion as something almost as a contest, as opposed to really seeing the richness of all of these arguments. And that's not to say that I'm for some kind of an artificial harmonization, but rather to see the problems and to see the richness of the discussion, because that elicits a greater understanding of what reality is, even if you can't come to a conclusion, but to deal with those problems.
Yeah, no, I think you're right. I mean, just sort of this notion of the richness of reality. I mean, the image I often have in mind is sort of an optimization problem where you're trying to get all these different things to work together, and you can't, in a sense, you can't have it all, and so you don't get. I mean, there's no neat package, and yet there's this in trying to come to an understanding. We do the best we can, and we get at least some insight, and I think we get a sense of the beauty and the majesty of the world, and then there's a pleasure in understanding, and having insight.